I'm super delighted with this next session. I'm going to sit down and have a chat with, I don't know, companies doing okay, I guess, in advertising, and obviously has been in the news quite a bit. Please welcome Rob Leathern from Facebook. Great to see you. Have a seat. Have a seat. So, I want to thank you, Rob, for coming here. Takes guts to, sit down and chat about. I mean, let's face it. You have an interesting title. Your title is Director of Product Management, Business Integrity Division.
That's right.
Walk me through what that means.
So we're part of the ads group at Facebook.
Yep.
We're responsible for basically making sure companies and individuals are adhering to the business policies that Facebook has. In reality, most of that is ads. So we run the ads review processes, machine learning, human review, et cetera, all the infrastructure that fits it together. And then also some of the other products on the platform, like the marketplace, which is buying and selling products between people. Some of the same kinds of review and processes apply to that too. So we're also, over the last year, we've been working a lot on the ads transparency efforts that the company has been working on, including political ads transparency.
So, there's a vicious rumor going around that you guys are doing pretty well on the revenue side and associated market cap with lots of market share. And so company's been on a roll for many years. And yet, a little bit of noise in the system, starting, I guess, a couple of years ago around this notion of measurement, because there was, and you guys, fessed up to, a measurement mistake and another one and another one and another one. And look, I get it. It's hard. It's moving fast. And I think the narrative came back. Look, we're trying and we're making mistakes and we're trying to own up to it. They all went your way. So, there could be a mistake, but when they're all your way, obviously we understand sort of where that comes from. Walk me through the thought process on campus around when these things started to break. What was the internal narrative like? Oh shit, or we got to get what was the thinking at Facebook?
Well, I think some of my thinking around this is that I think Facebook is a very optimistic place, and I think there's some of us who I think are optimistically pessimistic. So I think we see that there's a bunch of work to be done.
Yep.
We need to not shy away from it. We need to not abdicate our responsibilities. We have a lot of responsibility in servicing the people that we do on this platform. So we need to take the approach of saying, what are the things that we can do? What are the things we can implement that can help grow, improve what we're doing? And part of that is acknowledging that there's lots of room for improvement. So that I think has been a key part of, especially after 2016, after the Russian interference and all those things, making sure we can look forward, look for ways we can improve that. And certainly I think part of that as well, I think, is also engaging with the community, engaging with the industry, which is why I think it's important for us to be interacting in places like this, right, on Twitter and other places where often the conversations are not always comfortable, but I think it's important to have them. I think the other thing is, also, people will send me lots of messages asking me to verify their page or their profile or things like that. So, but I think it really is important to be engaging and having that discussion.
Well, so I guess a couple of years ago it was measurement, and then of course the biggie, right, which was Cambridge Analytica, and that was just that was huge, because not only is that like a breach of consent around data and a leak, but it was a double whammy, because then it got utilized for nefarious purposes, circumvention of our democracy. I mean, it sort of doesn't get any worse than that, but it did. It got worse. And then there was the PII breach, and I think we can all agree. I mean, we may disagree around whether people are really that bothered by the GDPR-like sort of anonymous tracking. I'm on Facebook's side on that. I'm not really sure anybody really cares. More on that later. But the PII stuff, I mean, it kind of feels like it's so wrong. And I suspect, like a lot of people in this room, I've been frustrated, right? Because it's time after time. I mean, Scott Galloway's, Scott Galloway's great, but he's also got that sort of negative mantra, and he's out there saying, I'm sorry, but you can't just say, we need to try harder, because, the 10th time you say that, you start to, even I'm a comedian, and I'll post something like, I don't know, what did I post the other day? Yeah, there's no effing trust. Harsh, but we'll get that off. But you know what? A lot of people respond to that going, fuck, that's right. And I don't want to have to post that stuff. I do.
Well, look, I think here this is the reason we've expanded the number of people working on this. It's why we're hiring lots of people, whether it's more people to review content, engineers, people from the policy side, et cetera. A lot of these issues are complicated.
Yes.
And I think but it's not one of those ones where we're going to say these things are hard. We have the responsibility to fix these problems. We have the responsibility to come up with solutions to problems that I think also are new and no one has ever had before in some ways. One of the approaches we've taken is around transparency. And so we started in your home country, in Canada. We did a little test. We made all the ads on the platform visible to people in Canada. And then from there, we rolled it out globally in June. We then built...
so these were political ads?
Every single ad.
Every single ad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So today, I think what sometimes also was lost in the discussion around the political ads, where we have 7 years of transparency in the US, Brazil, coming in the UK as well, is that every single ad on the platform now you can go and see. You can go and look at the page. You can see when the page was created, if the name was changed, things like that. And then you can go and look and see actually all the ads that the page is currently running. So that's one thing. Now people can then go and report, even though they saw an ad, they didn't report it at the time, they can go and find that ad, they can report that. We're going to be doing more to kind of encourage that and understand that. People can also report bad experiences that they're having in the browser, in the Facebook browser that they click through on the ad. But, none of these things by themselves is enough. We just basically have to be fighting on multiple different fronts against bad actors. And there are a lot of people just trying to target users on Facebook, as we've seen.
Well, I think the phrase that Scott Galloway uses is Facebook was weaponized, in the sense that, you're right, we are in new territory here. We've never had a platform this big, nor this real time ever before. And so I get it that it's a scramble. We had this recent case where there was a complete, right-wing nut job conspiracy story, and it got more views than the New York Times on some critical, I can't remember the exact application, but it's like, is that a question of just a human non-scaling approach or an algorithm tweak? What causes that?
Well, I think we started in ads, at least in May last year. We started rolling out a bunch of different changes around either making it more difficult for distribution or cutting off ads that were using various tactics. So some of the ones we started with were pages that were covered in ads, were financially motivated, kind of spammers. We saw that with some of the false news stuff that we saw around the 2016 election was actually mostly financially motivated. And so...
You mean like bots driving up?
Yeah, basically fake stories, sensationalist content, et cetera, that then is promoted with ads and then leads people to pages where they're selling ads.
You're not suggesting there's fraud in the advertising? No.
I wouldn't do that.
No.
I wouldn't do that to you, Terry. But then over time, we've continued to evolve that with other algorithmic changes. We just actually announced a couple weeks ago, rolling out penalties and disablements for sensationalism, engagement bait, which is where people are saying, comment on this ad, like this ad, things like that. So, we're continuing to evolve these algorithms. We also have to basically have a system where for some of these things, just a human being has to look at it. The algorithm's not smart enough to figure it out. The algorithms are getting better. In other cases, like we've seen with political ads, we rolled out not only coverage of when a candidate is mentioned, but also issue ads. Now this is partially to address the foreign interference, because a lot of the kinds of ads the Internet Research Agency ran were essentially like civil rights, issue type ads. And so there, it's also a question of training reviewers to review this content, having these things work together. We do actually also we have to also emphasize that we're not going to be able to do it by ourselves. So it's going to require regulators to step in, figure out like when there are cases that for certain kinds of disclosures that may be required, or what is the transparency regime that we can kind of all benefit from.
Okay. I know I think I tweeted in frustration a few weeks back. I said, why doesn't Facebook just shut off all political advertising until you figure it out and get it right? Why not do that? Why not sacrifice right here on stage, announce Facebook is terminating, not accepting a single dollar from any political ads, and what would that be? A couple $1 billion? Come on.
Well, actually, it's all transparent. You can actually see the actual amount on the report. But I think one of the things
Take that as a no.
Well, what Mark said was, he said, look, I think the advertising is kind of a part of the civic engagement, the process of getting the message out. One of the things that we talked about a little bit, I think, at the time as well, was that a lot of incumbent candidates have more access to traditional media like radio advertising, TV advertising. Challengers, newer candidates actually are less able to access those types of media as well.
It would be unfair for the newer brands in politics for you not to take their money. Okay.
Well, I mean, that could be one way to think about it.
I have another solution. So I'm from Canada. You're from South Africa?
Yeah, originally.
Commonwealth. One time. In Canada, this is dated, but in Canada, most political advertising is free. Mm-hmm. The media companies are mandated to provide access because it is important to be able to get the message out, and there's only 36 million people in Canada, so it's like a suburb. And so they provide a certain amount of airtime for free. Mm-hmm. It was a cute stat I saw, not the last prime ministerial election, but I think the one before that. The Conservative Party in Canada broke all records for spending on political advertising, $30 million. That's an M, with an M. So essentially, because for the most part they get it for free, mm-hmm. because the media companies are mandated. I mean, if we're going to take a civic responsibility lens on this, why not just provide it for free?
Well, I mean, a couple thoughts here. Firstly, I think we've said the amount of political advertising that Facebook receives is very small compared to the overall ad business. It's also actually really small compared to offline TV advertising and others. There are definitely countries that have actually done that. So I think Brazil, this was the first year that Brazil changed to allow online advertising at all. They used to provide just TV advertising money to candidates. And actually, what's really interesting about what they decided to do as well is they also made it the law that if you don't disclose who you are and go through a bunch of different steps, that you could go to prison. So they actually implemented a bunch of rules around online advertising, and it's the first time that they are doing that I think actually we could definitely learn from. As an example, if you go look at the FEC database, you can go do a search. You can search for different candidates for the Federal Elections Commission, and one name you'll find in there who was a candidate for the 2016 election is Vladimir Putin. So, it's finding a source of truth and being able to not do it by ourselves, work with other companies, work with regulators, watchdog groups, et cetera, is really one of the things we want to do. That's one of the reasons why we're doing the transparency stuff. We've rolled out APIs. Yep. Again, we are happy to take the criticism because like I said, we have a big responsibility, but I think it's also important to realize that saying we can't do it alone is not a cop-out, it's not abdicating our responsibility. It's basically saying some of this stuff has to have consequences for people who abuse these systems, whether they're ours, whether they're television ads or other online companies as well.
I agree that this is not just a Facebook problem, although you being amongst the largest, obviously you're squarely in the headlights. We just had a midterm election. A lot of eyes were on Facebook and these campaigns that got a lot of noise, a lot of coverage. Give yourself a grade. How would you grade how you sort of manage these elections from the standpoint of avoiding some of the challenges that you were accused of, or the platform was accused of in 2016?
Well, like you said, I went to school in South Africa. Our grading system was a little bit different than the US, so I don't know if it'll translate. However, I think things went kind of as I expected, more or less. I think We saw cases where we made a bunch of mistakes. Mistakes were on view. Advertisers, who didn't think their ads were political because we're doing issue ads as well, got upset. Lots of news coverage of those types of things. I think we did decently at the foreign interference front, by requiring people to give an ID, by verifying home address, those types of things. I think we've also continued to be very upfront with people about the fact that we're not going to catch everything that we are finding and we have found. There was an announcement today of coordinated and authentic activity that we found based on a tip from the FBI on November 4th. So we're going to continue to be...
you mean like the real FBI, not the fake FBI?
Yeah, not the fake FBI, not your FBI.
Okay.
The actual FBI. So I think, and we shared examples in the post today of, what those ads looked like. They were not targeting the U.S. They were French, if I recall correctly. But, we just have to keep explaining what's going on, transparency, working with others, coordinating with law enforcement, et cetera. So I'd say overall on the midterm elections, I think, could have gone better, could have gone worse. I'd say it's kind of middle of the road from my perspective.
That's a C here.
But I think like, okay, sure.
Well, it's not an F.
It's not an F.
It's not an A.
But what I would say, one thing I think is important though, is I think like we've learned a lot from this process. We've responded, and I think we will respond to feedback. One of the things, for example, was people complained the ad archive, you needed to log into Facebook to see this archive of ads. So we took that requirement away, made it open to people globally, no login required, et cetera. So we're going to just continue to see how we can improve these things. There's lots of elections all over the world. They're just going to keep coming. So we're going to just keep doing this work, keep doing our best.
You mentioned, so obviously, politics is a big one, but you mentioned the integrity of some of these advertisers and the spammy nature of some of these ads. I had an experience, you're well aware, in August where I saw an ad on Facebook, and it was for an electric surfboard. This thing looked amazing. I'm a wakeboarder and a water skier, and this was like a hybrid of the two. It was a board that had a skeg down and then a propeller. It was all battery operated. The battery lasts for 2 hours. There was a whole movie on Facebook promoting this product. And it had a remote, so you literally would ride this thing above the water and surf with your remote control. It looked awesome. It was only a few $100, so I bought one. And, it arrived. Don't see the skeg, don't see the battery, don't see the propeller or the engine, and no remote. So obviously it's a scam from a Chinese manufacturer, DVC, so to speak. And as you recall, I posted that on Facebook saying, beware, scam Facebook is allowing, or not doing enough to prevent, perhaps. Because obviously you wouldn't want that. You'll take their money, but you wouldn't want those kind of advertisers.
No, we don't want that.
Otherwise, you're going to turn into MySpace. And by the way, I posted that, and to your credit, and David's credit, and Cheryl's credit, and Carolyn's credit, everyone, they all responded saying, oh crap, that's bad. We're on it. You called me. We had a call with your group to talk about what you guys were doing about it, and I think that's great. But again, this is where the sort of Scott Galloway, this is bad, we'll have to try harder. It's that, after a while, we're gonna need to see. And this morning, I was on Instagram, and sure enough, it's more fantastical products that have zero possibility of being real. And so I guess my question would be not enough, right? If you can, blow, by the way, it's $200. For a refund.
Talk about it
yeah. It's okay. That's gotta be like when that happens.
That's not okay. So one of the things we started talking about in June, we've been doing for a little while, which is getting feedback from people, understanding or having a sense of when they might have purchased a product, soliciting feedback from them. It's not feedback that can as easily be gamed as like a consumer-facing review on other sites. But we're getting feedback from people when we see those feedback. And again, the unfortunate part here is it takes a little bit of time to get enough feedback. But we're getting better at kind of modeling this stuff and finding out when people are complaining. We talked to a bunch of consumers. We found it, obviously, when they're ordering something, they don't get what they expect. That's not great. If it takes too long to ship, that's also another thing. So one place people can go, you can go to, there's a bookmark recent ad activity. You can go and give feedback on any of the ads you've clicked on recently, going back. We know that that's just the beginning. There's going to be more stuff that we're doing around this area. It's a problem for everyone in the e-commerce side. Certainly, we would like to also work with others in the industry, in the marketplace, to address these issues, because I think we need to raise the cost for bad actors by working together. They have the advantage in some of these ways, but it's not okay what you experienced. And my team and other teams at the company are definitely committed to addressing that problem directly.
Well, I've known you for 10 plus years. You have integrity in my books, and many of the senior executives that I'm friends with, I know are people of very, very high integrity. So I guess what I would say from a personal, like, I want it to get better. Like, I want that to get fixed, because it feels bad. I don't want to have to, make funny things like that, but I will. If those things continue, and so we all want it to improve. I do hope that's sincere about the company taking it seriously. And today I want to thank you for coming on stage and talking.
Thanks,
about
Terry.
it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.